Meet Jire Laro. Once upon a time, he dreamed of being a legendary hero. He spent his youth admiring tales of brave warriors wielding holy swords, defeating demon lords, and winning the hearts of beautiful princesses. But those childish dreams are long gone. Now Jire is a cynical young man with messy black hair and a tired gaze. He lives a quiet, isolated life in a small wooden shack, far away from the glory he once chased. The peace is shattered when an energetic girl with peach-colored hair suddenly bursts into his doorway. With a massive, toothy grin and a wave of her hand, she makes a wild request. She wants Jire to join her adventuring party immediately. Jire doesn't even hesitate. He slams the door right in her face, hoping to get back to his silence. The girl isn't deterred, however, and begins hammering on the wood with a loud bam, bam, bam. Frustrated, Jire cracks the door open just enough to glare at her. He threatens to report her to the local knights if she doesn't stop the racket. Desperate, the girl wedges herself into the doorway, insisting she isn't a scammer or a religious recruiter. The girl finally introduces herself as Retinoa Innocent, though her friends call her Reti. She flashes a bright, sparkling smile, completely ignoring Jire's demand that she pay for the door she just tried to break down. Instead, she offers him amazing benefits, including a place to live and a team full of cute girls. Jire stares at her, realization finally hitting him. He recognizes her name. She is the attack hero, a legendary warrior chosen by the holy sword Gran Vergu. In this era, heroes are popping up everywhere, but Reti is a big deal. She stands confidently with her massive, glowing blade, practically vibrating with excitement. Jire, however, remains unimpressed by her status. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a worn, tarnished identification tag. He holds it up with a bored expression, revealing the truth of his current standing. He isn't a hero, he's just a lowly, bottom-tier, D-rank adventurer. Finding the right person is never easy, but this energetic girl is certain she's tracked down her target. She strikes a pose, pulling her hair into pigtails and flashing a wide grin to jog his memory. She recounts a memory from 5 years ago when a massive bear attacked her. He was the one who saved her life while he was out hunting. Ever since that day, she has admired him from afar, inspired by his strength to become a hero herself. She even remembers his parting words, a speech about how only weaklings cry and that becoming a hero is the only way to fulfill one's dreams. Hearing his old, edgy advice read back to him sends the man into a spiral of pure embarrassment. He violently shakes her, begging her to forget his dark past and those cringy words immediately. With stars in her eyes, she confesses that joining a party with him has been her lifelong goal. She leans in close, waiting breathlessly for his response. He looks her dead in the eye and gives a flat, immediate rejection, leaving her completely stunned. However, there is no way she can accept that response. She simply smiles through the rejection, pretending she didn't hear a single word he said. They descend into a shouting match, with him yelling his refusal and her screaming even louder to drown him out. The persistent girl follows him everywhere, wailing and begging for him to join her party until he finally collapses from exhaustion. Panting and defeated, he wheezes out a reluctant, "Okay," just to make the noise stop. She immediately cheers, her energy returning instantly as if she hadn't just spent an hour screaming. He sighs, trying to set some boundaries by saying he'll only stay for a little while. She takes that as a little while and turns it into 50 years, or at least until they save the world and slay the demon lord. With a wink and an outstretched hand, she officially welcomes her new black-haired hero to the team. Full of excitement, the girl leaves to fill out the application so they can officially become a team. Seeing this as his opportunity, Jire makes a run for it. There's no way he is going to fight a demon lord. This lack of passion is a big contrast to his past self. He wanted nothing but to become a hero. He went on many near-death adventures and drank horrible potions just to increase his magic power. He did this all in the hopes that the holy mark would appear on his body and he would officially become the hero. However, he didn't really have the purest of motives. He wanted the fame and fortune that came with becoming a hero. But one day, his hopes were shattered when he overheard a conversation between some adventurers. They talked about how tough it was being a hero. The hero has to work endlessly on demon subjugations without rest. Even when they do become a king, the job doesn't change. This is when reality hit him. All the work that he had been doing was for naught. That's when he made a decision. He will earn only enough to survive and live a leisurely life. Strolling through the bustling streets of Universia Kingdom, he notices the town of Heroisville is packed with people. He wonders if a special event is happening today, as the usual crowds seem even larger than normal. A sudden collision knocks him off balance. A mysterious hooded figure bumps right into him, letting out a startled cry. Both immediately begin bowing and apologizing, each claiming they were the one being careless. The stranger pauses, staring at the young man's hair with wide, curious eyes. He notes that her white hair is quite rare, though he admits his own jet-black locks are just as unusual for this land. Before another word can be exchanged, the hooded girl panics and dashes away into the distance. Left standing alone, Jire notices something sparkling on the ground. He reaches down and retrieves an elegant pendant she must have dropped in her haste. He figures he'll just drop it off at the local night office after he finishes his errands. As he walks away, the sounds of a cheering crowd reach his ears. People are shouting that Princess Rafine has been spotted nearby. Jire realizes why the town is so chaotic. It's the one day of the month when the beloved fourth princess is allowed to walk among the commoners. He watches the excitement from a distance, indifferent to the royal hype. 1 month after his escape, Jire relaxes on a soft bed. He feels like he's finally living his best life. However, his peace is short-lived as he stares at his empty coin purse. With only 500 rien left, he realizes he can't even afford another night of lodging. He has no choice but to head to the guild to find some work. Scanning the request board, one flyer catches his eye: an escort mission to the neighboring kingdom of Etal. The reward is a massive 250,000 rien, and the client is listed as private. Though he finds it strange that the client isn't named, the extraordinary pay is too good to pass up. Accepting the job, he figures he can reach Etal in 5 days by carriage and then retire to a life of leisure. He makes his way to the meeting point, spotting a carriage and a small group of people waiting in the distance. As he approaches, his heart sinks. Standing there are 3 familiar girls, including one with twin tails and another in a hooded cloak. He freezes in his tracks, a cold sweat breaking out as he realizes he has walked right into a trap. Rady suddenly leaps toward him with a wide grin. Before he can even process the situation, she thrusts a piece of paper into his hands. She beams, explaining that since he forgot to leave an application at the guild, she brought one directly to him. The contract she offers is actually a lifetime of service to protect her. Stuttering in disbelief, Jire realizes his dream of a quiet life has just been shattered. His inescapable fate has finally caught up with him. Rady is over the moon, practically glowing as she begs Jire to join her party. She insists it must be fate that brought them together, but Jire isn't buying it. He flatly rejects the offer, looking completely exhausted by her high-energy antics. The rest of the group gathers to see the man they have heard so much about. Reti hypes him up, assuring her party that he is absurdly strong, but the rest of the members aren't convinced. The red-haired girl points out that his aura seems very ordinary, and he doesn't seem strong at all. She asks for his name. He introduces himself as Jire Laro, a D-ranked adventurer. The other members introduce themselves as well. The red-haired girl with the twin tails is Lena Untetman, an A-rank mage with a sharp, confident smirk. Beside her stands Eve Dulcus, a quiet girl buried in a hooded cloak who barely says a word. The name Untetman rings a bell for Jire, and he starts to sweat. He remembers clashing with an elf from that same family in the past, a group of hot-blooded, dangerous assassins. He decides right then and there to keep his distance from Lena, hoping to avoid a massive headache. Reddy tries to force the issue by calling for a majority vote. Lena shrugs it off, saying she doesn't mind if Jire tags along. When the silent Eve says she doesn't care either, Reddy takes it as a yes and celebrates their new teammate. Jire tries to protest, pointing out that Eve's expressionless face doesn't exactly scream, "Welcome." Reti ignores him, physically dragging the poor girl forward to prove her point. Both Jire and Reti start presenting their case, hoping to bring her to their side. Exhausted by their antics, she tells them once again that she doesn't care either way and walks off. Putting all this aside, Jire realizes that the client hasn't arrived yet. Just then, a new figure arrives. A polished blonde adventurer named Cain Stoltz shoves his way through the crowd. He bows respectfully to the hero Reti, claiming it's been a long time since they last met. Reti looks a bit overwhelmed as Cain continues to heap praise on her. Cain notices Jire standing there and his smile instantly turns into a look of pure disgust. He asks what a trash adventurer like Jire is doing near the hero. Jire stays calm, pointing out that he is simply here because of the request, but Cain isn't satisfied with this response. In a condescending tone, he points out that a low-level trash adventurer isn't suited for a request of this caliber. Jire agrees that this request might be a bit hard for a D rank, but he also points out that the request form didn't have any rank requirement. With every word from Jire's mouth, Cain grows more annoyed, as if simply talking to him is beneath him. He throws a bag of gold towards him, like he is giving charity to a beggar. Angered, Reddy is about to jump in, but Jire stops her. Cain tells him to take the money and remove himself from the request, telling him that a D rank like him will be useless anyways. Jire decides that he has finally had enough. He doesn't mind if someone calls him trash, but to insult all low-level adventurers is not something he can stand for. They might be low-level, but they have a lot more to offer than anyone realizes. These low levels are the ones helping out the orphans and being a pillar for society. With an intense aura, he firmly states that they are not trash. Sensing the spike in his aura sends shivers down everyone standing nearby. Gathering himself, Cain dismisses his point, telling him once again to pick up the coins and leave. Jire bends down and quietly starts picking up the coins. He tells Cain that he needs these coins more than him. Cain confidently states that he is the third son of the Stolz family. This money is nothing but loose change for him, but Jire points out that even though he is from the Stolz family, he is still the third son. This means that he has no right to inherit the head position. Jire goes further, saying that he probably came this far because of his family name and not his own skills. Enraged by this, Cain takes out his sword and dashes forward, ready to take him out. Suddenly, a black-haired girl appears out of nowhere. She points her hands toward Cain, ordering him to drop his sword. With just a few words, a powerful magic takes hold, forcing Cain's body to move against his will. His sword clatters to the ground, leaving him trembling in disbelief as his limbs refuse to obey. Jire realizes that she is using word magic, a very rare talent. Not only that, but she is also using a ring of transformation to disguise herself. Cain demands to be released, trying to intimidate her with his family status, but the girl remains completely unfazed. She reveals herself as Fina, the very client who requested an escort to the city of Etal. The news hits the noble like a physical blow, his face turning pale. Fina's expression is cold as she stares him down, expressing her deep disappointment in his behavior. She admits that she would love to cancel his contract on the spot, but for the sake of his family's reputation, she offers a single final warning. One more mistake, and she will report his actions to the authorities. Turning her attention to Jire, Fina decides she isn't finished talking. Since he was busy fanning the flames of the argument, she orders him to ride in her private carriage so she can question him further. Jire can only let out a defeated groan, knowing a long lecture is heading his way. Inside the cramped carriage, the atmosphere is heavy with silence. Jire nervously introduces himself, but Fina quickly drops the formalities, telling him to just use her name. Her eyes are filled with a strange intensity as she skips the lecture and gets straight to the point. She has questions that only he can answer. Leaning in, Fina asks if he knows anyone with black hair who wears a mask. Jire is caught off guard, admitting that back in his hometown, he was the only one with hair that dark. He begins to wonder if her interest in him is purely based on the color of his hair, but Fina's thoughts are clearly elsewhere. Her eyes sparkle with a sudden, overwhelming hope. She recalls rumors of a legendary hero with black hair who recently appeared in Etal. Clasping her hands together in a prayer-like gesture, a blush creeps across her cheeks. She is convinced that this mysterious figure is her fated person, and she can't wait to finally meet him. She lowers her head, hiding her face in embarrassment. It starts to make sense as the pieces come together. She requested this escort to Etal so she can meet this person. The reason her name was private was because she doesn't want to reveal her social standing. Jire isn't bothered at all, leaning back casually as he looks out the window. He points toward the driver's seat, noting that with a bodyguard that's skilled, their safety is practically guaranteed. His sharp observation leaves the girl stunned. He continues to dismantle her secrets, noting that, despite having a powerful warrior as an escort, she still hired extra adventurers. He realizes she wants her to avoid a fight at all costs because the bodyguard's unique swordsmanship would immediately give away her identity. Putting that aside, he asks her about the person she is trying to find. With a sudden jolt in her step, she leans in close, her eyes wide with excitement. Since he has black hair, she decides to make an exception and share her most precious memory. She begins a long, rambling story about a black-haired hero who saved her when she was only 6 years old. Hours pass as she gushes about her savior, clutching a silver ring and comparing him to a prince from a fairy tale. She even claims he promised to marry her one day. Jire can only nod along with a weary expression. his eyes glazing over as her chatter never seems to end. Suddenly, her stomach lets out a thunderous growl. She freezes, her face turning bright red from the sheer humiliation. Panicking and stuttering, she tries to apologize for talking too much, but the hunger is impossible to hide. Jire reaches into the air, manifesting a shimmering magic circle using a spell called Item Box. He reaches into the rift and pulls out a bag of treats. The girl's jaw drops in disbelief, her eyes nearly popping out of her head at the sight of high-level spatial magic. She explains that only master mages or specialized porters can use such a skill because of the massive mana requirements. Jire just tilts his head, confused by her shock. He simply says he didn't know it was hard and just learned it on his own. He offers her the bag, explaining they are rare Charté snacks he received as a thank you gift. The girl's eyes sparkle with pure joy as she recognizes the legendary, always sold-out sweets. She clutches the bag to her chest like a holy relic, promising to treasure every single bite. Rady presses her face against the carriage window, her eyes wide with longing as she stares at the bag of treats. Seeing her desperate expression, the Jire offers her some, and she eagerly nods her head with a loud shout of excitement. The group decides to pull over and take a well-deserved break. Sitting by the carriage, Rady happily stuffs her face, her cheeks blushing with joy as she savors the sweet flavor. Jire passes out more bags to the rest of the girls, who graciously accept the unexpected gifts. Away from the group, Cain sits alone by the campfire, his back turned as he sulks over the recent defeat. Jire approaches and quietly sets a bag of sweets down next to him. He doesn't force the gift, simply telling him he can throw them away if he doesn't want them, but asks for his honest opinion if he decides to try one. As Jire walks away, he stares down at the bag, his expression filled with guilt and confusion. He quietly admits to himself that he had tried to look down on the boy earlier. Clenching his teeth, he wonders why someone he treated so poorly would show him such kindness and forgiveness. After a hearty meal and a good night's rest, Jire is jolted awake by his party member, Wed. It is time for his graveyard shift on night watch. Wed gives him a stern warning to stay alert, mentioning that a mysterious angel appeared earlier that he could barely resist. Settling in for his shift, he is suddenly startled by a soft greeting. Emerging from the darkness is the princess, offering a warm smile that catches him off guard. She pouts and huffs, teasing him for being surprised by her presence. The princess explains that she snuck out because she rarely gets the chance to experience the outside world. Though Jire is worried about her safety, she clenches her fist with a determined look, insisting she is much stronger than she appears. He sighs and decides to let her stay, figuring it is best to just go along with her whims. Remembering the guard, he wonders if she really approved of this. Rolling her eyes, she whimpers out a yes. From her attitude, Jire instantly realizes that she snuck out. The princess offers to stand watch, so he can get more rest. She assures him that there aren't any monsters out today that are above C rank, so it's fine. Jire wonders how she knows the area is safe, suspecting she might be using detection magic. To test the surroundings himself, he suddenly whips a stone into the tall grass. With a sharp thud and a tiny squeak, he catches a drooping rabbit. He picks up the fluffy creature, explaining that it is a rare D-rank monster whose parts sell for a high price. The princess is instantly mesmerized, her eyes sparkling as she gushes over how cute it is. It is the first time she has ever seen one up close. The princess is quickly taken in by its cuteness. Jire pulls out a knife to begin harvesting the creature. The princess freezes in horror, her face turning pale as she realizes what dealing with it actually means. Seeing her traumatized expression, he quickly hides the knife and offers to let her pet the rabbit instead, causing her face to light up with joy once again. Under a glowing full moon, Fina sits in the quiet forest, gently stroking the fluffy white rabbit. Jire notices a golden pendant around her neck. Fina pulls it out, calling it her greatest treasure. She mentions that she almost lost it recently, but a kind soul returned it to her. Jire recalls the white-haired child. He had thought the pendant must belong to her, but he doesn't pay it much thought, quietly dismissing it. He keeps the realization to himself, listening as Fina explains that the locket holds a photo of someone very special. Fina's expression softens into a melancholy gaze as she looks at the locket. She admits that after 9 long years of waiting, a dark thought often haunts her. She wonders if the person she is searching for might no longer even be alive. Seeing her pain, Jire offers a comforting smile and reassures her that he feels the person is still out there. Fina's eyes widen in surprise before she breaks into a genuine, warm giggle. She finds him surprisingly kind, thanking him for the much-needed encouragement. He leans back, playfully defending his character by claiming he is a handsome, gentle guy. He jokingly admits his only real flaw is a total lack of ambition. If he had his way, he'd stay home and sleep for the rest of his life. Fina listens with a faint smile as Jire describes his ideal lifestyle. He wants a life free of stress, doing just enough work to survive with no strings attached. The word free resonates deeply with Fina, sparking a new light in her eyes. The conversation turns back to her status and the person she waits for. Jire tells her she's already made her choice, and it's okay to be selfish, even if that means eloping one day. Fina blushes, a shy smile playing on her lips as she admits she might just be reckless enough to do it. As the night winds down, Fina realizes she has opened up more than she ever intended. She finds Jire mysterious but easy to talk to. Before they can dive deeper into her secrets, she shifts the energy, excitedly demanding they talk more about the person she is searching for. A few days later, the journey continues as their carriage finally breaks through the tree line. Jire looks out at the horizon, satisfied with a peaceful trip where other adventurers handled the monsters. With a village in sight, he looks forward to a well-deserved night of rest. They arrive at the town gates, but something is immediately wrong. There isn't a single guard in sight to greet them. A heavy silence hangs over the stone entrance, prompting Fina to step forward with a sense of growing dread. The streets are a ghost town. Not a single villager walks the paths, and the windows of the houses stare back like empty eyes. Suddenly, a lone elderly man stumbles into view. He wobbles down the center of the street, clutching his cane for dear life. Seeing the group, he gasps out a desperate plea, asking if they are the adventurers. Fina rushes to his side, her face tight with worry as she demands to know where everyone went. The old man's expression collapses into one of pure terror. Shadows cast over his eyes, he delivers the chilling truth. Every single person in the village has been kidnapped. Men wearing black masks descended upon them with a horde of monsters, stripping the village of its food and valuables before dragging every inhabitant away. The group gathers to piece together the mystery. Analyzing the tracks and the reports, they realize the attackers bypassed the gate guards by hiding inside cargo carts and threatening a merchant. It wasn't a random raid, this was a calculated operation by kidnappers. While their current continent abolished slavery years ago, it still thrives across the ocean. In the Bestia continent, human slaves fetch a high price, fueled by old resentments from past wars. Jire asks Fina what she is going to do about this. This leaves her momentarily confused. He explains that the adventurers only accepted an escort mission. Anything beyond that is for her to decide since she is the client. Determination hardens Fina's gaze. She refuses to turn a blind eye and declares they will save everyone. Everyone gives her a nod of approval, as if this is what they were waiting to hear. However, the kidnappers could have gone in any direction, so finding them will not be easy. Fina reaches for her power, ready to use a high-level clairvoyant spell to find them, even if it risks blowing her secret identity. Her bodyguard quickly grabs her, stopping the spell just in time. She reminds her that exposing her true self would ruin their disguise. With a casual shrug, Jire pulls out a rare magic tool, a pair of enchanted binoculars. The others stare in disbelief, wondering how a simple adventurer has such a high-end item. Ignoring the stares, he scouts the horizon and spots a hidden cave in the woods. The kidnappers are still there, and the villagers appear to be alive, though heavily guarded. Wed takes a look through the binoculars to assess the situation himself. The enemy is controlling over 60 high-rank monsters, making a direct frontal assault suicide. They decide on a more tactical approach, a diversion to draw the monsters away while they sneak in to rescue the hostages. Frustrated by the idea of letting the kidnappers escape, Lena argues for a direct assault. She believes they should crush the enemy here and now to prevent them from terrorizing anyone else. Her intense, wide-eyed stare leaves the rest of the party feeling uneasy and hesitant. Jire suggests a blunt alternative. Why not just charge through the front? He gestures toward Reddy. He reminds the group that she is their attack hero, and a direct confrontation should be effortless for someone of her caliber. The realization hits the other high-ranking adventurers like a lightning bolt. They had completely forgotten her status. With a cheerful, fanged grin, Reddy radiates confidence, seemingly unbothered by the gravity of the situation. The team begins their raid, stomping toward the mouth of the dark cave. While the A-rank adventurers and Reti tear through the front lines, Jire takes a different approach. Using gravitation magic, he casually lounges upside down on the cave ceiling, far above the chaos. He is perfectly content with his house-sitting duty. As a D-rank adventurer, he knows the others view him as a liability, and he has no personal desire to join the fray. From his spot on the ceiling, he notices a masked bandit and a repressed memory resurfaces. That specific skull design is identical to the one worn by the thugs who attacked a village that he rescued. Realizing this group might be more dangerous than they appear, he abandons his lethargy. He places a hand to his head and casts a wide-range detection spell, sending ripples of magical energy throughout the entire cavern system. While he monitors the area, the rescue of the villagers appears to be going smoothly. However, the situation shifts quickly. Elsewhere, a hidden assailant sneaks up behind Cain, who is busy fending off a wolf, catching him completely off guard. Jire's eyes snap wide as he realizes he has no choice but to step in. With a flick of his wrist, Jire unleashes his marionette technique. Invisible threads snare the attacker midair, forcing the man's own hand to plunge the dagger into his neck. The bandit falls in a heap, leaving Cain completely stunned. He stares at the black wolf, his mind racing as he tries to figure out how the threat was neutralized so instantly. Meanwhile, Jire calmly analyzes Cain's fighting style. His movements are polished, befitting a C-rank adventurer. However, he notices that Cain isn't using any body strengthening. This is the bread and butter for a swordsman. Moreover, he isn't using any presence detection either. Jire watches him from the shadows, hiding a smirk. He's no stranger to high-stakes situations, having spent plenty of time binding people up during his secret training. The rest of the rescue party eventually gathers. Reddy proudly announces that the last of the enemies has been cleared. With the area secure, Reddy leads the group away to meet up with the party. Once he is finally alone, Jire's expression shifts to one of serious focus. He drops down into the cave, moving toward a massive, glowing, magical seal etched into the stone wall. This is the hidden chamber where the kidnapped villagers were kept. Jire reaches out, his palm glowing with mana, as he commands the illusion to shatter. The rock face crumbles away like broken glass, revealing the path forward. He doesn't have much time and needs to finish his secret objective before the others notice he's gone. Deep in the woods, a high-ranking cultist sprints through the trees, cursing the hero who ruined his original plan. He stops to catch his breath, clutching a ring of magical subordination bells that he managed to save. His relief is short-lived. A massive magic circle forms in the air behind him, and Jire appears like a ghost. With a single word, he paralyzes the cultist where he stands. His body freezes solid, dropping the bells as Jire steps forward to reclaim the dangerous artifact. Jire stares down at the trembling man, realizing just how much trouble these little trinkets could have caused. Jire stares down the massive pack of wolves. He realizes these are the tools used to control the monsters, but he isn't intimidated. Despite the bandit's shock, Jire explains that he simply followed the trail of the transfer magic left behind. The bandit is baffled, swearing his concealment spells were perfect. Jire simply sighs, calling the magic crude and suggesting the man needs more practice. He reveals that he easily deduced the plan to move captured villagers to another continent using a large-scale magic circle. With a casual gesture, Jire reaches out and shatters the complex magic seal into glowing dust. He then pulls out the skull mask from his item box. He asks him if he is a survivor of the Skull Brigade, leaving the man shocked. Jire admits he was careless to think he'd wiped them all out before. Seeing his plan fail, the bandit tries to crawl away, but a sharp sting stops him in his tracks. Jire warns him not to move, explaining that he's been hit with a paralyzing poison that will spread and kill him if he struggles. The man collapses, gasping for breath and begging for his life. Jire looms over him with a cold stare, asking if he's willing to change his ways and turn himself in to the knights. Desperate to live, the man weeps and swears he'll do anything. Jire offers a small, comforting smile and reaches out as if to help him up. However, his expression suddenly turns to stone. He grabs the man by the hair, yanking his head back with brutal force. He stares directly into the man's terrified eyes, his voice dripping with ice as he revokes his mercy. He speaks of the horrific treatment of slaves on the Bestia continent, where people are driven to regret their own births while their screams go unheard. With a look of pure disgust, he tells the man that he has decided never to trust his kind ever again. Walking away without a second glance, he tells the man he doesn't deserve an ounce of kindness. As a final parting gift, he drops a subordination bell on the ground. The ringing sound draws the hungry gaze of three-eyed wolves, leaving the paralyzed bandit to face the monsters he once controlled. The monsters, now free, try to attack everyone in sight. The man grins, thinking Jire will also be killed. However, in a shocking turn of events, all the creatures halt in their tracks as Jire commands them to stop. They instead turn their attention to the helpless bandit, ripping him apart limb from limb, while the demon lord disguised as a boy watches on with a grin. A few hours later, at the campsite, he faceplants into his hands, overcome with a sudden wave of intense shame. He remembers chasing down human traffickers earlier that day and can't help but cringe at his own behavior. He realizes he let his 8th grade syndrome take over, acting out an edgy, embarrassing persona that he thought he'd outgrown years ago. Despite his internal crisis, the feast continues around him. The villagers have prepared a massive spread to celebrate their rescue, and Jire tries to shake off his embarrassment to enjoy the food. He tears into a giant piece of meat, trying to focus on the delicious meal instead of his awkward past. As he eats, he notices Cain walking away from the celebration with a somber expression. Jire follows him into a quiet alleyway, offering him a snack and asking why he isn't joining the fun. Cain stops in his tracks, his face shadowed by a deep sense of guilt and frustration. He refuses the food, explaining that he doesn't have the right to celebrate. He feels like a failure because he struggled to fight off a single wolf while the other adventurers did all the heavy lifting. He believes he was nothing more than a burden who stood in everyone's way. Jire tries to play it off with a laugh, claiming he didn't do much either since he was just house-sitting. This attempt at comfort backfires instantly. Cain's eyes snap open with rage, his face contorting as he screams at him to stop messing with him. Clenching his fist against his chest, Cain erupts in a fit of pride and anger. He declares that as the 3rd son of the noble Stolz family, he has responsibilities and status that a low-ranking adventurer could never understand. To Cain, their situations are nothing alike, and Jire's casual attitude feels like a direct insult to his honor. He starts to break down, revealing his deepest insecurity. Born without a single drop of mana, Cain is the ultimate disappointment to the prestigious Stolz family. While his brothers mastered the arts of magic and swordsmanship, he was forced to rely on raw physical strength. Despite his efforts, his father viewed him as a talentless disgrace, and eventually gave him a high adventurer rank, just to keep the family name from being dragged through the mud. However, he still hadn't given up hope. He thought that if perhaps he can produce results as an adventurer, he'll find a place to belong. Using his hollow title, he recruited a team of low-ranking adventurers. He genuinely cared for them, believing they were comrades working toward a common goal. He happily funded their equipment and bought them supplies, finding true joy in their shared adventures. But the illusion shattered one night when he overheard them laughing behind his back. The people he called friends mocked him, calling him a naive idiot for believing their lies. To them, Cain wasn't a leader. He was just a walking wallet they can manipulate by pretending to be apologetic. The facade shattered before his eyes as their once-beloved memories turned sour. Heartbroken, Cain fled into the rainy night as the truth sinks in. He realizes that everyone he trusted sees him as nothing more than trash or a parasite to be drained. Overwhelmed by the cruelty of those he helped, he collapses in the street and lets out a guttural scream of frustration and despair. In the present, Jire watches the scene unfold. Instead of offering pity, he casually tosses a bag of sweets toward the crying noble. He tells Cain that if he doesn't hurry up and eat them, he'll finish the whole bag himself. Reminding him of the day before, he tells him that he wants his opinion about their taste. Turning around, he offers him a smile and walks off. Cain stares at the gift in shock, unable to understand why he would show him kindness. Back at the feast, Jire watches Cain from a distance, thinking about how hard the noble's life must be. He decides that staying relaxed and detached is a much better way to live. Still, a part of him wonders if the sweets meant for royalty actually taste any different than the ones he's used to. With the incident settled, the group moves on from the drama. The carriages roll forward under a clear sky, returning to the peaceful rhythm of their escort journey. Finding a quiet spot for a lunch break is all our protagonist wants. He wanders off to a secluded lake, finding the perfect patch of grass to lie down and escape the noise of the world. With a sigh of relief, he closes his eyes for a peaceful nap. Nearby, the water ripples as Reddy splashes around. She spots a massive fish darting through the shallows and lunges for it. Grabbing the slippery creature with both hands, she wonders aloud if it's actually good to eat. It seems the piece Jire so longed to find is not to be found here. He was only trying to take a nap, but now he's trapped in the ultimate nightmare. Having cast a high-level camouflage spell on himself, he is completely invisible to the girls, but if he moves even a single muscle, he'll be branded a pervert for life. The girls continue playing around in the pool while making small talk. Suddenly, Eve looks right at Jire and asks the others if they are really safe from peeping toms. Lena reassures her, confidently stating she used detection magic to confirm the area was empty and even set up a barrier to keep outsiders away. Eve isn't convinced and asks what would happen if someone actually saw them. Lena laughs it off, claiming only a master of high-level disguise magic could possibly bypass her security. Jire's face pales as he realizes his own camouflage is exactly the kind of top-tier magic she's talking about. The conversation takes a personal turn as Lena teases Eve, asking if she's so worried because she has a secret lover. Her face turns bright red, her heart racing as she thinks of a specific someone who once told her she needed to take better care of herself. Lena leans in close, her eyes twinkling with mischief. However, she admits she's a bit envious of Eve's ability to live like a normal girl. The playful mood shifts instantly when Lena asks what she would do if a man really was watching them right now. Eve's expression goes cold, a terrifying, murderous aura radiating from her body. Clenching her fist with a look of pure malice, Eve vows to make anyone caught peeping regret they were ever born. A faint sound echoes through the trees, making the girls pause. Jire remains frozen in the grass, paralyzed by the terrifying realization that his life is hanging by a single invisible thread. Panic sets in as our hero realizes he's in a tight spot. The two girls are just a few feet away, and they're already suspicious of a peeping Tom in the bushes. Knowing he'll be caught if he stays put, he decides on a desperate gamble. With a puff of smoke, he uses metamorphosis magic to transform into a round, fluffy, drooping rabbit. He wobbles out into the open, hoping his cute disguise will act as the perfect cover. The plan works almost too well as the girls immediately gush over how adorable he looks. One of the girls scoops him up, hugging the rabbit tightly. While he struggles to maintain his dignity, he suddenly realizes his magic is hitting its limit. He only has 3 minutes before he turns back into a human, and being caught mid-transformation would be a disaster. He thrashes around and manages to leap from her arms, scurrying away into the dense forest just in time. Safely hidden, he shifts back into his human form, letting out a massive sigh of relief. He barely kept his reputation intact, but the danger isn't over yet. Deep in the woods, he spots a strange glow and finds a group of spirits gathering in a clearing. At the center stands a woman of ethereal beauty, her long white hair shimmering in the light. She stands in the water, smiling warmly as she converses with the floating orbs of light. Captivated by the sight, he watches as she laughs, looking like something straight out of a fairy tale. Her scarlet eyes sparkle with kindness, and he can't help but stare at her smooth skin and angelic presence. He quickly catches himself, feeling like a pervert for watching her so intently from the shadows. Shaking off the trance, he makes a break for it and finally makes it out of the barrier magic. Thinking back to that girl, he can't help but wonder who she was. It's been 5 days since they started their escort quest, and the rest of the crew is surprisingly relaxed. They're sitting around laughing and playing card games as if they don't have a care in the world. Wed invites Jire to join them, but he declines, telling them he doesn't want to play with cheaters. This sparks a playful argument while nearby Fina giggles over a cup of tea. Our hero can only watch with a weary smile, wondering how everyone can be so carefree when their journey is far from over. A sense of peace washes over the young man as he looks toward the horizon. They are nearing the city of Etal, and he reflects on the long journey he's shared with his companions. It feels like an era is coming to an end. Suddenly, the quiet is shattered by the sound of frantic footsteps. A scout sprints toward the group from the direction of the city, his chest heaving as he gasps for air. His face is pale, drenched in cold sweat and twisted in pure terror. The others rush to his side, desperate to know what could have caused such a breakdown. The scout's voice cracks as he delivers the nightmare. Etal is gone. A tide of monsters has surged into the city, slaughtering everything in their path. An endless wave of the undead flood the city streets. Grotesque zombies and rattling skeletons crawl over buildings, their hollow eyes searching for the living. Jire looks on with a grim expression, realizing the entire city is pulsing with dark energy. A magical barrier is the only thing keeping the monsters contained for now. However, the mood among the survivors turns cold as they look at the faces of the monsters. These aren't just random summons. They are the transformed bodies of the city's own residents. Fina looms onto the false hope that the citizens might just be hiding somewhere. However, Lena calls out her naiveness, telling her the brutal truth that no one could have survived this. Cain's face pales as he begins to panic, begging the group to run away before they are slaughtered. Wed watches him calmly, telling him to run away if he is too afraid to stand his ground. Cain argues that fighting them will only gain them a senseless death and nothing more. Wed agrees that he is probably right. However, they have no other choice. The veteran warrior calmly explains the stakes. If the barrier falls, the horde will march straight toward the neighboring kingdom, tearing through every village in their path. His own family lives there, so running away is not an option for him. He asks Jire and Cain to continue their escort mission, while he and the hero's party can stay behind to deal with the situation. Fina steps forward with unwavering resolve. She refuses to leave, claiming she has something she must verify at any cost. Cain once again asks them to reconsider. It baffles him that they are living to die, asking them why they aren't more afraid. Wed reveals that he is afraid, but for him, it's scarier to lose someone he loves. Cain's cowardice slowly turns into deep-seated shame. He looks at his brave companions and realizes this might be his only chance to change who he is and make real friends. Swallowing his fear, he asks if someone like him could actually be of any help to the team. The tension breaks as Wed proudly slaps Cain on the back and welcomes him to the fight. While the rest of the group shares a lighthearted moment, Jire secretly sweats. He realizes that since nobody is running away, he's actually going to have to go through with this dangerous battle. But before they go charging in, they need a good plan. They try to find the person who caused this with Jire's binoculars, however. They turn up empty. Jire remarks that if they had someone with high-level detection magic, then it might work. Hearing this, Fina comes to a sudden realization. She begins to pull the ring off her finger. Her bodyguard rushes forward, shouting in a panic to stop her, but it's too late. With a bright flash of light, her appearance transforms. She sheds her humble disguise, revealing herself as the stunning, elegant young woman from the pond. She is actually Rafine Odium Raffinado, the fourth princess of the Universia Kingdom. Everyone watches in stunned silence as she admits the situation is too dire to keep her true identity a secret anymore. Jire stands frozen as he recalls the day he took the request. There was a lively atmosphere since the princess was going to show up. She is said to be the only one smart enough to use clairvoyance, the highest level of detection magic. Moreover, he recalls how he accidentally saw her bathing, and he desperately hopes she doesn't realize he's the same guy. Her bodyguard, Cheyenne, pleads for her to reconsider since she'll be putting herself in danger. Rafine ignores her, telling her to be quiet. She prepares herself, kneeling on the ground with a look of intense focus. She closes her eyes and begins an ancient, powerful prayer to the great spirits. Her voice carries a royal authority as she commands the spirits to grant her the god's eyes. A massive surge of mana erupts from her body, sending visible shockwaves through the air. Jire watches in awe, noticing how she perfectly controls a dense amount of power that would make even an S-rank magician jealous. He once tried to learn it himself, but since he hates studying from books, it didn't work out for him. Seeing this as a golden opportunity, he decides to try and copy the technique simply by watching her do it. Jire copies the technique, successfully managing to use the spell himself. A massive magical crest expands beneath his feet, sending out a pulse of energy to scan the surrounding forest. Suddenly, he detects a presence directly behind him. He tries to laugh it off, hoping his senses are just playing tricks on him. But as he slowly turns his head, the reality is far more terrifying. A towering, demonic figure looms over him, draped in dark robes. The creature radiates an overwhelming aura of pure malice. The rest of the group remains oblivious to the situation. Jire realizes that this could only mean that this guy is so strong that even Rafine's high-level clairvoyance wasn't able to detect him. The terrifying skeletal monster named Karifs reveals himself. Floating with an air of superiority, the self-proclaimed Death Eater mocks the group of humans cowering before him, promising them an eternal sleep. The adventurers are frozen in disbelief. Their specialized detection magic didn't pick up even a trace of his presence. Karifs chuckles at their confusion, relishing the fact that they are completely at his mercy. Refusing to back down, a brave young warrior lunges forward with his blade. He puts everything into a heavy strike, but the monster doesn't even flinch. A shimmering barrier easily deflects the blow, leaving the boy's weapon looking like a mere toy. Karfez loses interest in the inferior human instantly. With a casual flick of his finger, he releases a concentrated burst of magic. The blast pierces straight through the warrior's torso, sending him crashing to the ground in a pool of blood. Panic erupts, and Eve rushes to the fallen boy's side, desperately casting recovery spells. Jire realizes the gravity of the situation. He was only barely able to react. Even though he weakened the magic, it still caused this much damage. However, the boy should still be able to survive because of the healing magic. Seeing the monster's strength, no one dares to step forward and challenge it. But then, Reiti steps forward as confident as ever. She points her holy sword at the skeleton, though she struggles to even remember its long, complicated name. Pointing to Jire, she boasts that her teacher is 10 billion times stronger than any monster. Camouflage dismisses her claims as a pathetic joke. He's finished playing around and is ready to wrap things up. He turns his attention to Lena, noting that she had been secretly gathering mana for a counterattack, but nothing escapes his sight. The skeleton begins to laugh maniacally, convinced of his total victory. He becomes happy thinking of all the praise he'll receive from his master, the Demon Lord. He gloats about how he's already taken down the legendary black-haired hero and seized control of the entire city. This catches Rafine's attention. She can't believe that the black-haired hero she had been searching for all this time can be dead. Carfs points to a black-haired zombie sitting on a chair with a dead expression. Rafine falls on her knees in disbelief. She loses her senses, uttering in disbelief that her fated hero can't be dead. Carfs sneers, casting a powerful excess gravity spell that slams everyone to the pavement. High-ranking adventurers and even the hero herself are pinned down, unable to lift a finger under the crushing weight. The lich cackles, confident that his prey is finally trapped and ready for the end. Among the fallen, Jire sighs in annoyance while pressed against the cold stone. He originally planned to stay under the radar as a lowly D-rank adventurer just to enjoy a lazy life. But seeing the hero and her guards completely helpless, he realizes he can't keep up the act any longer. To the lich's utter shock, Jire slowly pushes himself off the ground. The ground beneath his boots cracks as he fights against the magical pressure, standing tall while everyone else remains immobilized. The lich stammers in disbelief, demanding to know what kind of secret magical tool allows him to move. Jire just stares back blankly, casually mentioning he doesn't have anything like that. Infuriated by the boy's nonchalant attitude, the lich decides to stop playing around. He conjures a sphere of abyssal black flame, a dark energy meant to inflict a slow and agonizing death. His allies scream out in terror, begging Jire to run before the orb of darkness consumes him. The black fire explodes, swallowing Jire in a towering pillar of shadows and heat. His allies watch in horror, assuming the boy has been erased from existence. However, Jire casually stands in the center of the smoldering crater, completely unscathed and scratching his head. He tells the lich to stop shouting because it's getting annoying. As the dark flames continue to flicker harmlessly around his coat, Jire looks back at his stunned companions. He calmly explains that this is nothing. He's survived a dragon's breath before, so a little black flame is hardly worth the fuss. Our hero stands unfazed, casually brushing off a cluster of annoying flames, as if they were nothing more than a nuisance. His enemy stares in disbelief. The undead mage can't wrap his head around how his powerful magic was just erased like a piece of trash. Determined to end this, the skeleton unleashes a barrage of high-level elemental attacks. First, a massive water dragon surges forward, but the boy casually slaps it aside. Then, a heavy stone coffin tries to crush him, only for him to stomp it into dust. Finally, a violent storm of wind howls toward him, but he simply blows it away with a single breath. Panic finally sets in for the skeletal mage. Shaking with fear, he realizes his standard spells are useless and decides to stop holding back. He begins to chant an ancient, dark incantation, calling upon the spirits of the abyss and the governor of death itself. The air grows heavy as a massive, intricate magic circle glows beneath his feet. He commands the very cycle of life and death to return everything to nothingness. This is his final trump card, a forbidden spell meant to grant absolute death to the living and eternal suffering to the dead. High above the castle, a terrifying sphere of darkness begins to form. It's a massive, swirling orb of pure destruction, known as the Eclipse Catastrophe. The sheer scale of the attack dwarfs the entire fortress, casting a shadow of certain doom over the battlefield. Down below, Wed watches in despair, certain that the end has arrived. But Jire remains unfazed. With a casual wave of his hand, he activates a skill called Interference, causing the giant sphere of flames to vanish into thin air. Carfs freezes in absolute disbelief. He stammers, unable to comprehend how a mere human could possess such overwhelming power. Jire just sighs, adjusting his coat and reminding the monster that he is, indeed, just a human, and a good-looking one at that. Sensing he's outmatched in a fair fight, the demon tries a different tactic. He decides to play dirty. With a wicked grin, the monster uses its remaining energy to cast manipulation magic. Suddenly, Cain loses all control of his limbs, his body moving against his will as he is forced to lunge forward. The demon cackles, using him as a human shield and a hostage. He taunts Jire, certain that he won't dare attack his own friend. However, Jire just looks on with a bored expression, bluntly stating that Cain isn't actually his friend. Cain and Wed gape in shock at his cold honesty. He clarifies that they are just acquaintances from a quest, nothing more. The demon's jaw practically drops at the sheer audacity of the human's lack of empathy. Desperate, Carves decides to take the city's residents as hostages. Wed wonders what he is talking about since the people are already dead. However, Carves reveals the truth. A falsehood barrier. He explains that this dark magic can turn lies into reality, reversing the very laws of life and death within the city. The monster points to the surrounding ruins, claiming the lives of every citizen now rest in its skeletal hands. Hearing this, Rafine breaks down in tears, begging Jire to save the people. She wants to save that person no matter what. Jire remains calm. He realizes she is talking about the fallen hero. However, the truth is that if he really was a hero, the Holy Mark would have protected him from the barrier's effects. With a casual wave of his hand, Jire unleashes a massive wave of light. He tells Rafine to stop her crying and just watch. The brilliant energy of his Purify Undead spell sweeps across the city, washing over the buildings like a rising sun. Suddenly, the citizens begin to wake up. They rub their eyes in confusion, feeling as if they've just come out of a nightmare where they were walking corpses. Carves recoils in disbelief, his jaw dropping as he watches his dark barrier crumble and vanish into thin air. Jire wears a confident smirk, explaining how simple it was to break the spell. By slightly altering a basic purification skill, he not only fixed the damaged city, but restored the living dead back to their true selves. To him, such a feat was nothing more than a minor adjustment. Seeing his plan fail, Carves lunges forward, grabbing Cain as a hostage. He sneers, threatening to take him down with him if Jire tries to finish him off. He plans to use this moment to make a quick escape. Cain, however, refuses to be a bargaining chip. He screams for Jire to ignore him and kill them both. He claims that he was never needed by anyone in his life, so he doesn't mind dying if it means stopping the monster. Jire sighs, closing his eyes for a moment at his dramatic outburst. He looks him dead in the eye, his gaze sharp and determined. While he admits he can be a self-centered pain, he makes it clear that he still needs him around. He makes a gun with his hand and fires. Carves suddenly disappears into black dust as if he never existed. A wave of relief washes over the group as their bodies regain the ability to move. Jire lets out a heavy sigh, running a hand through his hair while his companions look on in awe. Wed practically tackles him in a tearful embrace, wondering why Jire is only a D-rank adventurer despite possessing such overwhelming power. While the others celebrate, Rafine stands back, lost in thought. She stares at Jire's back, her mind racing as she considers how he shattered a monster's protective barrier and finished it off with a single strike. Jire, feeling the weight of the attention, scratches his cheek awkwardly, wondering if he should have just avoided the fight altogether to save himself the trouble. The peaceful moment is shattered when Jire suddenly senses a wave of intense bloodlust. He realizes the killing intent isn't aimed at him, but at Rafine. Before anyone can react, a massive orb of destructive energy hurtles toward her. Without a second thought, Jire lunges forward, pulling Rafine into his arms to shield her as the attack explodes against his back. Dust and smoke fill the air as Jire checks on the trembling girl, making sure she's unharmed. Jire realizes that the attack came from Lena. She does come from a notorious family of assassins. He brushes that off for now, focusing solely on Rafine's safety as he asks if she's okay. Jire stands up and realizes his clothes took the brunt of the blast, leaving a massive hole in his tunic. He decides to simply discard the ruined garment, nonchalantly pulling it off. Rafine lets out a startled yelp and turns away, her face flushing bright red at the sudden display of skin. However, her embarrassment quickly turns to pure shock. As she peeks back, her eyes lock onto a distinct, jagged scar across Jire's chest. Her breath hitches and her heart begins to race. Staring at the mark, she realizes this might be the person from a memory she could never forget.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away.